Now may I have the honor to invite Mr. Pat-nie Wu, partner and head of ESG-Hong Kong at KPMG China and global co-chair Sustainable Finance at KPMG Impact, to present on stage to share with us on the topic of sharing of packaging policy and regulations. Mr. Wu, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard Jersey, and thank you to all of you for coming. My name is Pat Wu and I represent KPMG, but I used to be in the textile industry, so I know a bit about it. And I'm here to share with you some of the regulations that we're seeing around the corner. We are going to talk a little bit broader than just packaging regulation, and just kind of like what we're seeing in the horizon from a broader kind of market development standpoint. We do see that sustainability is really going to be one of the key topics of this generation. And I started on my sustainability journey 15 years ago in the textile industry. And back then, really nobody was talking about this, or nobody really kind of like listened too much. But now, in the financial markets, in the capital markets, ESG is one of the hottest topics. And this has only been the case for the last couple of years, simply because now all the capital market participants, the banks, the investors, the insurers, and all of these guys really care about it. And they have to kind of like meet their targets. And for them to meet their targets, everybody else has to meet their targets. And so from that perspective, sustainability in the capital market, called ESG, environmental social governance, has become one of the hottest topics. So of course, packaging is one of the things. And I just really think about, now with so much kind of like e-commerce, and every day we're receiving packages at home and all of this kind of stuff. All of our food is being delivered by Deliveroo, Food Panda, and all of this kind of stuff. So actually there is increased amount of packaging. No doubt about it. And then sometimes e-commerce, you can kind of like return the stuff and then you get the things back, and then even more packaging. So, from that perspective, I will start with some packaging regulations. And really, there are just so many regulations. And I mean, we are all international businesses. We serve international businesses. And so it's not really just one jurisdiction that you have to deal with. But so, in total, there are just so many packaging regulations around the world. And this is from a McKinsey study. And, so it is really the key here is, as you can see, oops, I don't think you can see it, but of course, reduction is one of the key areas, but collection, sorting, and what they call extended producer responsibility is really what is driving this trend and what they really want to focus on. So as kind of like some of the kind of from the world, some of the regulations that we are seeing is, as mentioned, the extended production regulation is EPR, extended producer responsibility, is one of the areas that's really being focused on. And then, of course, here in New Jersey in 2022, what they have required is that there is post-consumer recycled content in all of these packaging. And of course, packaging is, they're not just going to focus on textile packaging, They're just going to focus on packaging in general. And of course, I think the biggest amount of packaging that is being dealt with is with food. And I think that is really where it is at the moment. And then also in Maine, in the US, they have prohibited a lot of chemical compounds in the packaging. So I think all in all, this is all about just reducing waste, right? And so packaging is one of the wastes that's out there. But we can't just kind of like think, okay, yeah, if we deal with the packaging aspect, then we're done. That's not really the case. It's really kind of like life cycle analysis, which will include packaging, but also the products. And that is why, I think that the European Union has really kind of like started looking at kind of like just circular economy concepts. And so, at KPMG, we don't really kind of like develop a team unless there's a big market for it. So we have a circular economy team in Europe, simply because the regulation is here. And as you know, the key is really that you have to kind of like look at it from cradle to, rather than from cradle to grave, is how do you go from cradle to cradle, right? So that something needs to be able to kind of like be recycled and reused, and as you can see here, 35 actions to establish a strong and coherent product policy and framework making sustainable products, and all of this kind of stuff is really critical. And of course, there is also a sustainable textile strategy. So I think that you have to look at this whole packaging concept in the context of all of these other things that's going on. So, from design of packaging and of products, you need to really think about, well, are these things going to be able to be recycled and reused, and the whole life cycle of something. And so what is this whole sustainable textile strategy? It's really kind of, it's not rocket science, right? We've all known this all along. And it is really kind of, starting from design, how are you going to design it? If you design something that is hard to recycle, that's something that you have to consider. And of course, a digital product passport is all about traceability and transparency. We are now looking a lot at technology such as blockchain, which is able to kind of like track and trace things with a digital distributed ledger. And one of the key problems that we have all over the world is this, greenwashing. And I have to say that a lot of C-level, C-suite and board of directors, they love to come out and say, yes, we're doing this, yes, we're doing that, we are going to be net zero, we are going to have zero waste, all of this kind of stuff, without really thinking about how it's going to be done. And now what we have already been seeing this year is that people and companies are being fined for greenwashing. There was a bank in Germany that was raided by police for greenwashing. There was another asset manager in the US that was already fined. They had to pay a fine because they say that they were investing everything, having ESG or sustainability lens on their investments. But that wasn't really true, and they had to pay a fine for that. Another one is being investigated right now. So that's in the financial services industry. But the same is going to be the case for the textile industry. And what I find is that a lot of the time, the external view and the internal view is very different. Externally you see a wonderful kind of, front window, I would say, like a shop window, that's great. And then you go in and there's nothing inside, right? That's a lot of the case, and I think the key is really understand that greenwashing is a major risk. And then this whole area of overproduction, overconsumption is being discouraged, and that's why fast fashion and all of that kind of stuff is really under the radar, and H&M is really kind of coming up with different business models. and ways of dealing with it. And as I said, extended producer responsibility is one of the key aspects. And then all these other things. But it's all, in the end, it's about reducing waste. And then also, how are we going to be able to meet the Paris Agreement goals? How are we going to reduce climate change? That is the overarching narrative, right? It's all about how do we reduce carbon? And so all of these companies coming up and saying that they're going to, sorry, excuse me. They're saying that, they're going to go net zero and all of this. The key now is how are they really going to do it? With packaging, with their products, and with their logistics, they need to look at it all. So, there are a couple of examples. H&M Group, of course, reduce, innovate, reuse of their packaging. And this is not, they're of course doing a lot of stuff. And I don't know if you guys knew, we had this recycled textile system at the Mills that was actually taken all the way to Stockholm, right? Now it's in an H&M shop in Stockholm where you can kind of like bring your old clothes and they're going to recycle it into something new. So it's not just about packaging, but the whole H&M kind of methodology of doing things is also being looked at. And of course, Carrefour, another French group. The French, of course, are very innovative in this aspect. Because it's the Paris Agreement, and even in the financial services space of the banks, the French are always ahead. But I think that compostable packaging is also a very critical aspect. So so something that does biodegrade, and it's all about just not having this non-biodegradable plastic and all of this kind of stuff. And as you can imagine, Carrefour being just an overarching retailer of many different things, the amount of packaging that they use is astronomical. So to end with, I just want to kind of bring this all. So we started with packaging. Then we looked at kind of like textile in general. And then we look at, well, what is the broader theme? And as I mentioned to you, it's all about meeting those Paris goals. That's what the world is trying to achieve. And and Europe is always ahead of the game on this aspect. And so this whole area, what we call CBAM. So remember this, CBAM, Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. This is going to come into play in 2023, so next year. Is already going to come, starting with heavy industries, of course. But I think that it is going to be for all industries, where you are going to have to declare the carbon footprint of your product at the border into the EU. And if your product has a higher carbon footprint than what they deem is what it should be, you will have to buy those EU emissions trading scheme carbon credits. If it's lower, you can sell those carbon credits into the exchange. So right now, all of our clients in these several fields of cement, iron, steel, aluminum, of course these are all kind of like heavy industries and high carbon industries. But I would foresee that going forward, textiles and other industries will be included, whereby you will have to be able to tell the government, the EU authorities, what the carbon footprint is, first and foremost. But of course, even before that, what you want to do is to be able to reduce your carbon footprint before it gets to the border, right? So it has to start with design. It has to start with how are you going to produce it. It has to start with are you using recycled content, etc., etc., to really minimize and reduce the carbon footprint of your products going forward. Who knows how much the carbon price in the EU emissions trading scheme is at right now? Does anybody know? How much? No? It's at 80 euros a ton at the moment. So of course the euro is trading at kind of like 20-year lows at the moment. So it's around 80 US dollars, right? So it's around 600 something Hong Kong dollars a ton. You know how much it's gone up? Even since 2016. I think in 2016 it was like maybe like 10. Do you think it's going to stay at 80? Or do you think it's going to go up? I think it's going to go up. So I think that in the end, everywhere, there is going to be a carbon price. Price on carbon. So maybe on packaging, maybe on products, on your logistics, everything has to be calculated and validated so that they know how much they need to charge you for carbon. So what do we need to do right now is to really start thinking that what used to work no longer works. You need to really think about a new business model and move into this low carbon economy future. So with that, I didn't talk everything about packaging, but I hope that that gives you an overarching theme of what is happening in this space of sustainability in the market. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wu. Please be seated. Thank you.